Blink, watch the dang
Wait,
movies.
wait, wait. What?
Blink has never seen an Indiana Jones film, ever. He gives me such a hard time, as many people do, for not playing certain games or finishing certain. This man watches one movie every 10 years, and he's never seen an Indiana Jones film.
Hey everybody, Alex here, and welcome to another episode of Video Games Gaiden. And look who I found. He's back. Numero uno, guest number one, is back for more essentially. Rusty, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Alex. It is so good to be back. I was thrilled when you asked me to come back. And yeah, we played a good game this time. Really interesting choice, different from the last one, I would say. But a lot's happened since the last time we got on a podcast and talked games. So, became a dad. I'm sleep deprived. You probably noticed I look a little bit different. I've got a beard and very large bags under my eyes. So, I'll do my best to get through this.
I believe we call that aging like wine at this point.
Yeah,
But if you're
something
like
like that.
me, you just keep drinking Diet Coke, and it's like formaldehyde. You know, like the brain will be dead, but the body will still be moving.
That's right. Well, a little cheers to you, my friend. I'm drinking Diet Coke's cousin. We've got a Diet Dr. Pepper. So,
The
cheers.
PhD of the family.
Yeah.
Isn't that fancy? So, obviously, you've already given us like a quick rundown of what's going on. But what about YouTube? What's going on with that? Where's my podcast? I've heard nothing.
Yes. So, I can't. When was the last? When did we record? When? Like, my concept of time is completely gone since becoming a dad, and I don't know what day of the week it is. I don't know. Up is down, left is right. So, when was that last year?
So you know how there's BC for before Christ. So this was BB for before baby,
That's right.
and that's all I can tell you.
Okay, sometime last year before new October. So, um, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, no. So YouTube, I think this is probably since like 2000, maybe 11, 12, the most active I've ever been on YouTube, which is a lot of fun. YouTube is a completely different beast, as you know. It is no longer the glorious days of the YouTube gaming community. It's a completely different space, but I'm still having fun. Still recording a lot of videos. The Otaku Brothers podcast is still, I would say, on hiatus. However, Ryan and I did hop behind the mics back in January to talk through our top 10 games of 2024, which was a good time. And I haven't talked to him directly about any of this. I want to bring the podcast back in some capacity, but if we were to do it, I'd want to bring it to YouTube, kind of what we're doing now. I just think you get so much more out of both audio and video podcasting. And especially with Ryan and my dynamic, it's, as you know, very back and forth and a lot of joking and just kind of giving each other a bunch of crap. And I think bringing Ryan to camera would just bring a completely new element and I think fun dynamic to the podcast that we've never had before. You've seen enough of me on YouTube. I have 200 plus videos. It's the Ari Lewis 2011. Everyone's familiar with that. But Ryan, I think, would be a ton of fun on camera because he's already a ton of fun behind the mic. So I don't know when that would happen. I can't promise a timeline for that, but maybe someday.
So you promise that this is going to happen.
I mean, now that I've said it, it kind of has to happen, right? So
We'll will it into existence. But no, I think that's also like one thing I really enjoyed about listening to the Otaku Brothers is because you guys sit next to each other and record, right?
mhm.
So you can kind of hear it's like I don't know, like I'm projecting here, but it's kind of like one of those things where it's like you ask a question, it's like looking at you like seriously? All right. Like
Yeah.
and that's kind of like when my friends and we go out, like my wife, it drives her nuts because like we'll look at each other and she'll be like, oh no, like the two of them are gonna fuck with somebody. Stop, I don't know what it is. Stop. And then she freaks out, then we both start laughing, and then she's like, you guys are assholes. Because we basically
Yep.
just made her get like super paranoid that we were going to do something dumb. And like, um, but so with YouTube, you just celebrated a big milestone
hmm
as of this
Yeah.
recording, depending on when I put this out. But yeah, it's crazy to think it's been that long. I also have to say, slight spoiler, I was very touched that I was one of your first subs. I was like, I was
Yeah.
like, I am so old. Like,
Yeah. That video, so I started kind of thinking about what I wanted to do for it about 3, 4 months back. And I wanted to do something that was like just deeply personal for me. I wasn't going to try and like do some clickbaity thumbnail. Like I knew I was going to put a tremendous amount of time and energy into making the video, knowing full well that it was for a very hyper specific audience. Like I did not anticipate this video to do well. That's not why I made it. I really made this for me to kind of cement this milestone in looking back on, spoilers, 15 years on YouTube when I started my channel back in 2010. And I was trying to find a way to not just celebrate the things that I had done on YouTube, but the question that you asked at the end of the last episode of the podcast that I was on, you asked all of your guests, what are the 3 reasons why you love playing video games? And it can't be playing them. And the last thing that I said was the community, the people that I've met through games and specifically through YouTube. And I wanted to really highlight that to like in some significant way in the video. And so there were 2 things that kind of came to mind. One of them was some kind of montage, right? Pulling old clips, seeing kind of just the 240p, 360p videos that people used to do, just webcam, air conditioning unit going on in the background, that kind of stuff, which I was able to do and was a ton of fun pulling those clips. I I never asked permission from anyone, by the way. I literally just pulled those clips,
yeah.
threw it in the video. So it is what it is. And the second was a feature that I kind of just, I don't even remember how I found it, but it was a couple months back. And it was the ability to actually see when you subscribed to everyone you've ever subscribed to. And it's kind of a pain in the butt to actually get to that feature. And I was just hoping that it told a fun story, right? Because
Yeah.
you can probably relate to this. There are channels that stopped making videos that maybe you just, all right, whatever. I'm going to unsubscribe to that person just because it doesn't make sense. They're no longer putting out videos. Maybe they pulled all of their videos. And I was so thankful that my subscription history was exactly what I was hoping and kind of expected it to be. The first person I subscribed to was Finn Gamer, then it was TV and Lust, then it was Steph's to Death, and then a whole bunch of other people after that the old school gaming community was very familiar with, like Dinky Dana, Dog in My Lens, folks like that. And then you're right, when I came across yours, I was like, wow, what was like 2012 that I subscribed to you or something like that?
Yeah. And I was like, really? Like, like I was kind of just like, wow. Like I was thinking, like obviously we're both sub to each other, but I was like, when did this happen? And I was like, oh wow, that happened a while ago then.
Yeah.
But I mean, to your point too, and what I really enjoyed about your video, other than the nostalgia hit, and I had to have a Moscow Mule after that, just because I was like, oh my god. But we use diet ginger ale, so I call it diet mules.
Good, good.
But no empty calories in this house, let me tell you. So but I think one of the things is, and you said it, is you did it for you, right? And that's what YouTube used to be. It used to be you did a channel for you and to make connections and everything else. It wasn't about, and again, I don't fault the hustle, a business, right? If you have the opportunity to make money doing this and you're passionate about it and you put your heart into it, all the power to you. Like that's why there's professional musicians and artists and whatnot. But, you know, I think, and the reason why I like doing this is for me and for us, right?
Yep.
All 20 of us who are still who are still on YouTube and not just looking up how to DIY videos, you know. But I mean, that's what, to me, that's always what has made it fun, especially since everybody can be into the same hobby and not be looking at the same stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely echo that sentiment. And I'll say 2 things. I remember seeing someone post something on Twitter not too long ago, and they're a YouTuber and they do it more as kind of a career and less of a hobby. And they said the moment you realize you need to make videos not for what you want to make them for or not for you to have fun, but do it or make the videos that will get the most clicks or make the videos that you know will bring in the most people, regardless of how much fun you're having making the video. And not that the two ever have to be mutually exclusive, but for me, it was just kind of this, I have to draw a line for myself because, like, I don't want to become one dimensional on my YouTube channel because that's not how I play games. Like I can't just play cozy games, although a lot of people would probably say, Rusty, I looked at your recent play history and it's like 200 Assassin's Creed games and maybe like one 3D platformer. You're not really a balanced gamer these days. But
No, and I saw Disney Dreamlight Valley in there, some nonsense too, and I was
don't
like,
don't bring that up. That's yeah, I'm dipping my feet into the cozy game genre and that might be the end of me, to be honest. But and we're kind of going off of a tangent here, and I promise I'll reel us back. But Craig, TV and Lust, he no longer does anything on YouTube, but he does have this blog that he recently started. I forget the platform that he's doing that on. And his first blog post was kind of about YouTube, why he walked away from it, and his stuff in his personal life. It was a really well written piece. And one of the things that he talked about was why he walked away from YouTube, largely posting on social media altogether. And it was because YouTube and some of these other social media platforms do not reward multidimensional content creators or people. They really
no.
want you to kind of shave off all the different parts of yourself so you are one dimensional, shouting into one specific topic. And I have to refuse to do that for my own YouTube channel because I just think it would be so boring as a creator for me. And like I said in my video, the reason why I do this is to, one, have the outlet to talk about games, but to also connect with other people. And I think just talking about one singular topic to me would just not be fulfilling or fun.
No, and I mean it's funny you mentioned that too, because there's even like I know Johnny has put up like anime videos from time to time, and he said like he wants to do them, but he's afraid to do them because he doesn't want to alienate people.
Yep.
And no, I've talked to Johnny. He's a very genuine person. And I know he means that 100% fact. Like I don't want to alienate people or have people sign up one week and then like what the hell is this the next week? Like I totally makes sense. That's him being a very
Yeah.
thoughtful person. But at the same time too, it's like people come to Happy Console Gamer for games, not
Hmm.
happy anime watcher,
Hmm.
They'll go to like a Glass Reflection or something like that instead, you know.
Yeah.
But he has several hobbies. Like I'll be honest, like the episodes he did where he talked about him drawing and he showed samples, I was like, I had no idea he wanted to do comic books and stuff like that. Like that. That's so cool. Like nobody knows that
Hmm.
unless follow him somewhere else or do something else. But he's not a one-dimensional individual. It's just like he realizes like I have to stick to my shtick for the show, and that he
Hmm.
enjoys doing it. But every once in a while, he throws up like a movie review, and I know he's done stuff with Electric Underground, stuff like that. Like he diversifies himself because he's into more than just one thing, and I believe we all are.
Yep. Absolutely.
Which kind of ties into this what I want to call cross-generational multimedia episode that we have today.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I do have 3 random questions for you.
I love it.
All right. Now, this first one, I have to ask you some questions as a preamble so I know how to ask it.
Okay.
Do you cook?
I do. Yeah. I'm not the best. I don't have like a wide swath of things that I cook, but the things that I do, I feel like I'm pretty good at.
Like what?
I can make and don't laugh, don't make fun of me, okay? It's nothing crazy.
Soup.
Um Close. Grilled cheese. I make a mean grilled cheese. I really do. The secret is like a hint of garlic powder, okay? Um but yeah, make a mean grilled cheese. Pastas. Now you're catching me off guard. I can do great omelets. Breakfast foods in general, I'm good with. So yeah, nothing too crazy, but especially now becoming a dad, Lauren has less flexibility with her job, my wife. So I don't want to say I do all the cooking or even close to it, but quite a bit more than maybe I used to. So
Okay. So now I can ask you my question. Please explain to me, in all of God's green earth, why every freaking recipe says salt and pepper to taste, 1 clove of garlic. Nobody puts just 1 clove of garlic. Ever. They put 8. They put 9 if you live in this house, but you never put 1 because 1, you don't taste it. And salt and pepper to taste. Why don't they put garlic to taste? Explain this to me.
That's a great question. I don't know if we're going to get to the root of this in this particular episode, but one thing I will say to maybe rebuttal the garlic comment. When you get that giant clump of garlic and there's like 8 cloves there, and it says 1 or 2, whatever the recipe calls for, maybe there's a cool little unique utensil that smashes all that up and mashes it up in a really fun, unique way, and it's quick and easy. But my ass is not cutting up like 7 to 8 cloves of garlic. And I know you can go to the store and buy a jar of already cut up garlic. All right, everyone knows that. But yeah, by the second clove, I'm like, honey, listen, we're getting 2. If you want to do more, that's great. But I'm out after 2. That's all I'm
Okay.
cutting up.
You want the hack? I'll give you the hack.
What's the hack? Tell me, please.
Put the clove down, take the knife, smash the knife. Now it's flat. Done.
Okay. That is the all right.
The other
That's the
option
hack.
is you get a mushroom slicer, preferably metal with wire. You put it in horizontally, cut. You can do 3 entire bulbs of garlic in 45 seconds.
Okay.
Enough to fight a vampire.
Yeah. I like it. I like it.
But yeah, I don't understand. Every time I'm like, okay, salt and pepper to taste, 1 clove of Katie, give me the slicer. It's like that. Like that's pretty much what it is. All right. But for the record, are you a fan of garlic, or or
Yeah.
am I basically telling you to kill somebody?
No, not at all. No, yeah, a fan of garlic for sure.
All right, excellent. Next question. Now this one, because now we scale them up, we get harder as we go. This one I think is not that difficult for you, but I want you to recast The Last Hope.
The Last Hope.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to like my brain. So I told you this before we started recording. I'm averaging 3 hours of sleep for like the past week, so my brain just broke. The Last
Sorry,
Hope.
sorry. No. I broke my own brain. A New Hope. I want
Oh,
you
A
to
New Hope. Okay,
I want you to
Star Wars.
recast A New Hope.
Okay.
If you need some backstory, George Lucas called you up and said, "I'm thinking about changing it again."
Reboot. So this is completely just starting from scratch, right? We're making a new version of A New Hope in 2025. We need to recast probably Luke, Leia, Han Solo, Chewbacca, C3. I guess maybe C3PO. We need to probably do as well.
And Vader, because we can't use AI Earl Jones.
Okay. I'm gonna say Luke. I can't remember the guy's full name. I think his first name is Jeremy in the cooking show. It's called like The Bear or something.
Oh, Jeremy Allen White.
Yeah, I'm gonna say he's Luke Skywalker.
That's a good pick. I
Okay.
like that. I like that.
I'm gonna say he's Luke Skywalker.
I think Carmi could do it.
Yeah, I think he'd be good at it. I mean, he has the long hair, blue eyes. I think he can pull off Luke. Han Solo. It's not Chris Pratt. I'm telling you that right now.
I was going to say, if you say Chris Pratt, I'm going to throw you off the show.
I'm trying to find someone who can pull off that kind of like sarcastic, witty, one-liner type of guy. And no one is coming to mind immediately. This is usually I'm so good with actors and actresses. Han Solo, let's maybe skip over to Leia for a second. Let's see, who are the up and coming, the rising actresses right now? I'm struggling with this, Alex. This is hard.
I didn't think was going to be the hardest one.
Yeah. Off the cuff, this is difficult. Like I'm just trying to think of recent movies that I've seen. Because the obvious like the gut reaction is just like Zendaya and like all these people that are in every single movie nowadays, but I don't want to do that. I'm at a loss. I'm telling you, I'm at a loss.
All right, so who would you cast as Vader's voice then? How about we do that?
I think it would be really interesting because it's deep. He'd have to hide his accent, of course, but Andy Serkis.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think he could have a really menacing. I mean, he's played villains before, and I think his voice would be pretty good for Vader.
You know who I was gonna say would be a good Moff Tarkin? What's his face?
Mads
Uh,
Mikkelsen.
no, no, no. Robert California from The Office. What's his name?
Um,
He was in the other Avengers movie. He was the robot who I can't remember the name of. Ultron.
you're oh, you're asking me to pull back, like pull from my memory that like I actually don't have right now. I can hardly even remember my own name. I'm
Oh my god,
so
what the
tired,
hell is
sleep
his name?
deprived.
You know, he's the one who's always he's on Blacklist. Everybody's probably screaming right now. James Spader. He could be Tolkien. Just imagine. Blow up Alderaan. They had it coming.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, so if they were gonna, mm, so I cheated. I did look online of like just actresses that could play Leia. I'll give you three, and you let me know who.
Okay,
Millie Bobby Brown,
I could see that.
Florence Pugh,
Okay.
or
Zendaya.
Haley Steinfeld.
I'd go with Millie Bobby Brown.
I probably would too.
I think she could. I think she has the depth.
Mhm.
Um, my runner up to that would be, and that's it's really just because I really like her. I think Selena Gomez could also pull it off, but she would have to be. You know how like Leia is very standoffish in A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I feel like she would fit in that from a
Yeah,
personality perspective. But Millie Bobby Brown does that just as well, if you ask me.
yeah,
But I want to
I
know who you're
agree.
gonna cast. But who's Vader's voice? This is the hard part.
Well, no, I said for Vader, I think
Oh, sorry, not no, sorry, not Vader. Obi-Wan.
oh, Obi-Wan. Wow.
Ian McGregor, but aged.
That would work,
It
right?
would
I mean,
work.
that would be the move. I think so. Let's just go Ewan McGregor. Okay, let's go. He is absolutely going to be the Ben Kenobi in A New Hope. Now we have to cast before we wrap up here Han Solo. I'm going to give you three:
Okay.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt,
Okay.
Andrew Garfield, or Chris Pine. Kind of cheating because he already played Captain Kirk, but
Yeah. I think I want to say Garfield, but that's because I'm partial to him as Spider-Man. Like I'm one of
yeah.
three. I'm one of three people in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Yeah. Yeah. Get man. Even yeah. That no. That is hard though.
Mm-hmm.
But also for Obi-Wan, I was even thinking if not aged up Ian McGregor, your next best option would be Donnie Yang.
That'd be fun.
But he was already the Terraskasi guy in Rogue One, so technically you can't use him.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Hey, I'm even wearing a Millennium Falcon T-shirt.
I
I
know
couldn't even
that.
cast. That was a great question, by the way. I wish I was more prepared for that. If
Well,
I had
that's
had
why
more
they're
sleep last
random.
night, yeah, if I had more sleep last night, I think I would have been able to pull that off a little bit more efficiently than I did.
All right, now last one. This
Hmm.
one's the hard one. What are three things in your life that you can't live without? And don't use
With
people. And don't use
without.
people. Yeah, and don't use people.
Okay. I would say coffee. For me, even I don't believe people that say I don't drink coffee for the caffeine, I drink it for the taste. That's nonsense. You're lying to yourself and others. I like it because of the caffeine, but also just the comfort. I love a warm beverage. I'm drinking a cold brew right now, chasing it with a diet Dr. Pepper because I'm crazy.
As you do.
Coffee number one, you can't say people, but I'll say something kind of adjacent to it, sports. You know, I'm a huge Steelers fan. I love watching sports, the communal aspect. Like for me, it's a literal obsession. Like I don't talk about it on my YouTube channel. I talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but like I love watching sports. Like when it comes to football season proper, like my game playing goes down significantly between the months of like September to February because I will watch any NFL football game, nearly any college football game. I cannot live without sports. I love watching tennis, golf. Not a baseball or basketball fan, really, although I do like March Madness.
Who doesn't?
But yeah, I've really gotten into watching golf and tennis as well over the years. So I would say watching sports, number two. And three, I don't want to just say like video games or anything like that. Music. I cannot live without music. I'm listening to music all the time when I'm cooking, when I wake up, on my commutes, when I go on a walk. It can really help to bring me just a sense of like peace when I'm really stressed out. The first thing I do after a tough meeting or just a tough day is I need to go on a walk and I'll put in my headphones and listen to. I have a playlist on Spotify. It's just relaxing video game music. And so it'll be Final Fantasy 13, Xenoblade Chronicles, Chrono Cross, Final Fantasy 9, whatever it is, my go to soundtrack. But also, like, whenever my family comes over, I love just putting on a record and just kind of exposing other people to music that they typically wouldn't listen to. I love music, and I also really like just, I guess, extending myself and listening to different types of music as well. I'm someone who typically like listens to the same five bands a ton, but I also like just kind of stretching myself and exploring new genres and bands as well.
Okay, now you gotta take out two of them.
That's tough, but I would say coffee and sports has to go. I cannot
Ooh.
I cannot live without music.
I agree with you on that one.
It's hard.
Although, replace the coffee for me with Diet Coke. That's pretty.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. What would your three be? So Diet Coke has to be number one.
Diet Coke, music, and then third thing is working out.
Yeah, exercise.
Yeah, because so this is a little bit about me. So once upon a time, 1,000 years ago, I actually used to weigh 210 pounds, believe it or not. And then I went on the track team because it got me out of gym.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't really run because I was so heavy, so they put me on shot put, and I discovered weightlifting and everything else, and I got really into that. And I was never like jack, just because it's like my diet's already weird enough for me to like dial it in the right way. And like I told you this the other day, like I have to lose 20 pounds, which will kill me, and then I don't even get anything out of it anyway. So it's like, what's the point? But there was a point where I was really like trying to, gain some mass. And I ended up tearing my shoulder and my pec on the left side at the same time. So luckily, no surgery. But when it came down to this whole like, okay, you can't do PT because shoulder exercises for an injury are pushing, and PT exercises for a chest tear are pulling, so you can't do anything. So for like 6-7 months, like I couldn't do anything.
Mm.
But that restriction really taught me a lot about like working out at home and using resistance bands and like the physical therapy behind it.
Yeah.
So that really dialed me into it. And like I got super into it. Now I just work out 6 days a week. But fact of the matter is, this was years ago. So over here it's raining. And unfortunately, because of even though the tears were super small, there is like a small degree of arthritis. So there's like days where I'll be like, it's going to rain. Like, but it's like this whole, like I'm talking, I had pins and needles for like 5 months, like
Mm.
all the way into my fingertips. But even now, years later, I literally am finally able to press 20 pounds over my head again,
Nice.
like that. But it's not due to like not being able to do it. It's just this shoulder is still so weak by
Mm-hmm.
comparison. But it's like 4 years of 5 pounds, 10 pounds. Now it's up to 20. But it's like, yeah, I'm never going higher than 20. Like at this point, like I'm 41. I'm not trying to go into the world's strongest man. I just don't want to break, you know? So,
Yeah.
and
Well,
that's
it's
pretty
amazing what
much
you
what it
can
is.
do. It's amazing what you can do with your own body weight and just resistance training, band work, things like that. Like you don't need to be deadlifting
No,
800 pounds and all that kind of nonsense. It's not good for longevity. It's not good for your joints. It's great to be strong, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for me to carry my daughter's car seat around. So I need to get back into the weightlifting scene a little bit more than I have been over the past few years. But it is amazing how much you can do with just your own body weight and band work.
there's a lot. I mean, there's also like, and this is where I'm going to nerd out. There's also just like a lot of stupid tricks you can do just to make it more difficult for
Hmm.
yourself without actually adding weight. Like, one of the push up things I do is actually a Mike Tyson conditioning thing where you actually press off the wall like you're going to jump and then you do a push up. So you get like a whole total body thing. If you could do 15 of those without like losing your balance, God bless you, because it is hard. And that man
Yeah.
did that for I don't know how many years. But after you finish it, like you're like, oh man, I feel so good. And
Hmm.
it's one of those exercises that kicks your ass, but you don't feel like you're gonna die afterwards. Like your body just recovers from it very naturally because it's using your quads, your calves, your shoulders, your arms, your chest. It's using everything. So it's not
Hmm.
like one part of your body's getting cooked at any particular time. It's like I didn't even know. I only found out about because YouTube and a short. Somebody's like, "Did you know Mike Tyson used to do this thing?" And I'm like, "It's freaking brilliant. It's better than burpees, and it
Yeah.
doesn't suck half as much." You know?
Yeah. Well, so last thing I'll say about the exercise topic, and you said you found that on YouTube, and it just brought back a memory for me. Way back when, and I'm surprised it wasn't captured on my subscription history. Maybe that was a separate account that I subscribed to this person. You could probably still find him. His name was Scooby. And it was this massive, jacked dude who always recorded videos with his shirt off. And it was just simple, simple, like how to videos for weightlifting. And he would tell you like the proper form for like bicep curls, shoulder press, lateral raises, like all these different things. And he had this like incredibly distinct voice. He always wore this like little goofy fishing hat. So you had this like massive man shirt off wearing this like ridiculous little boating fishing hat explaining, how to do certain exercises. And at the end of every video, he would just be like, "Thank you for watching. Auf Wiedersehen." And then he would just sign off.
I have
Look up
never
Scooby.
heard. I have never heard of this person. That sounds amazing. No, I was gonna say don't go down the fitness YouTube rabbit hole today though. It's
I can't even imagine. Yeah,
it's so freaking toxic. Like
I
just to
bet.
watch. Like this one influencer I watch who's very much into like the body image stuff. She posted a cheat day video, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, you have McDonald's! You're no longer an influencer." She's like, "Dude, it says cheat day in the title. Like I'm a person, you know. Nobody can be dialed in like this for their whole life. It's impossible."
No. Yeah.
That's why I like rat hole Chinese food. But anyway, so moving on. So I'm happy those questions stumped you
Yeah. Especially that
bec-
second one. My goodness.
because that's the point. So touching a little bit on the George Lucasy theme, as I alluded to, we have a triple media threat episode today where I asked Rusty in a battle of Lara Croft versus Nathan Drake versus Indiana Jones, who is the better archaeologist? Who is the better tomb raider? Who is the better adventurer? Who's probably the better homicidal maniac running around shooting everybody? We will figure this out today. But
Mm-hmm.
before we do that, we have to start at the beginning. And I'm going to ask you, Rusty, of the three, I am presuming you discovered Indiana Jones first.
I did. Yep.
How did that happen?
So I had a babysitter growing up, and I had to have been like 6, 7 years old. It's a very foggy memory for me. And I typically have a very vivid memory of like my childhood. But I remember her name was Erin. And I remember she would bring over like different VHS tapes for my sister and I to watch. And it was like the most exciting thing ever because she would typically bring things that my sister and I were just not familiar with or we didn't have access to. She brought over a lot of VeggieTales tapes that, naturally I really liked growing up. But the one thing that she introduced us to was Indiana Jones. Now, my parents had the typical box set of the original trilogy Star Wars movies. I grew up watching those. I saw the prequels in theaters. And I was brought up really well when it came to like 80s movies, 90s movies, television, all that stuff. But the one thing my parents never introduced me to, for whatever reason, was Indiana Jones. And so my babysitter Erin brought over Raiders of the Lost Ark one time. And I don't remember like the specific day, what I was wearing, none of that kind of stuff, but I just remember watching it and just being blown away by just the sense of adventure, the music, just the spectacle of the whole thing. Just Han Solo and how he, or Han Solo, Harrison Ford and how he kind of just portrayed that character, right? And every like subsequent, and she always promised, like, hey, there are more of these. So for future times when I come and babysit you guys, I'll bring them over. And so it was always this excitement that my sister and I had of like, will she bring over the next tape? And it was almost as if these movies came out in the late 90s, early 2000s, because I had no idea of them. It's not like we were going to the like Blockbuster, things like that, and we were trying to seek out the next movie. We were always dependent on my babysitter bringing over these films. And over the course of however long it was, months, maybe years, we saw all three: Temple of Doom and eventually The Last Crusade. So it was my babysitter Erin that kind of like introduced these movies to me when I was a young kid.
Did you ever play any of the video games with Indiana Jones?
I did. So funny you ask. My YouTube channel is often centered around, or at least I talk about licensed games. And growing up on the PlayStation 2, I wasn't really playing a tremendous amount of JRPGs outside of Kingdom Hearts. It was typically licensed Disney platformers, the Harry Potter games on PS1, PS2, things like that. And I remember going to Hollywood Video and getting Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb and taking it home and playing it. And to this day, I stand by that is actually a pretty dang fun pre-Uncharted Tomb Raider-esque type game. It's been years since I've played it, but I loved that game as a kid.
Did you ever play any of the Indiana Jones point and click adventures from LucasArts?
I did not. No.
Neither of I want to play them, but I always am afraid with like older point and clicks. Like I'm just gonna be like, OMG, like this, like did it age
Get to the
well?
point.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like the Sam and Max games to me, because they're in that Telltale style with more point and clicky stuff. I feel like they're timeless.
Hmm.
But something like Toonstruck is 150% nostalgia for me. And if you've never played Toonstruck, you really should.
Hmm.
It's basically a cartoonist known as Christopher Lloyd gets sucked into his own creation, and all the characters are voiced by famous voice actors,
Okay.
like for the time. So like Mel Blanc, I think, or they're using archival stuff for him. You should check, at least watch a trailer. You'll be like, oh wow, this is such 90s cheese,
Yeah, writing it
but I
down.
am oddly intrigued. It's like one of those things. And Christopher Lloyd's like eating it up because he's in
Hmm.
front of like a green screen the whole time, and it's like old man in front of a green screen, like they
Yeah.
told me to move around like this, you know, like, and he's completely uncomfortable and it's very obvious. But
Yeah.
okay, so because I never played that Indiana Jones game that you mentioned, I've looked at it a few times and it does look kind of cool.
Hmm.
But I mean, for me though, how I discovered Indiana Jones actually was the Muppet Babies.
Really?
So, did you ever watch the original Muppet Babies cartoon?
No, no.
Okay, so are you familiar with it?
No, this is completely new territory for me.
Okay, so once upon a time, back in the 80s, you know, the BR before Rusty,
Before, yeah, exactly.
um, they're, what they used to do is they used to do like cross referential stuff. So obviously, Muppet Babies are Jim Henson, right? And
Hmm.
George Lucas used Henson Studios to do Yoda and all this other stuff and basically do all his creature effects and, you know, Labyrinth and all that stuff. So when it came to like spoofing each other's work and using footage, and copyright wasn't the way it was, it is today, back then, you know, Jim Henson called up George, be like, hey, we're doing an episode of Muppet Babies on Indiana Jones. You cool if I use some footage? Yeah, yeah, just ask Steve if he's okay with it. Spielberg, yeah, sure, no problem, man. And they would literally like spoof out the entire intro to like Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Oh,
or they
wow.
would,
Okay.
or like they would have them like, you know, basically the whole premise of the show was they're the Muppets, but they're babies. So like Kermit, Ms. Piggy, the Great Gonzo, who's running around in suspenders, and he has the stuffed little chick instead of Camilla, you know, stuff like
Hmm.
that, which explains his poultry fetish, and and basically, like, they'd be like, we're chased by a rock. And then they would show, like, the big rock from Raiders of the Lost Ark coming. Then they would put, like, the characters in front of it like this and stuff like
That's
that.
awesome.
And they did episodes with Back to the Future. Star Wars was every single time. Like, they'd open up the door and you'd see, like, a TIE fighter and they'd slam the door shut. And it was all about imagination with, like, you know, current pop culture. But it was,
Hmm.
but looking back, it always centered around like Spielberg and Lucas, and you knew that's because they were friends with Jim Henson.
Hmm.
So it was such a cool show,
Yeah, that is
like just to
awesome.
see like the interpret, because that's actually how I found out about the Muppets first. Then I saw Great Muppet Caper with them as adults, and that's when
Hmm.
Gonzo really became my favorite character.
That's so cool.
So, but other than that, I mean, for me, for Indiana Jones in general, after that, you know, I'd only seen it through the Muppet Babies, but
Hmm.
McDonald's, of all places, had a promotion where if you got like a Big Mac value meal or something, you got one of the VHS randomly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this was like, I guess because they were redoing them on VHS because the movies had all been out already,
Yeah.
and I wanted them. So my mom's like, okay, okay. So she goes to McDonald's. She gets like a Big Mac. My mom hates Big Macs. And they give her the Temple of Doom. So I bring it home. I'm
Nice.
all excited. And the Kali Ma scene, Alex got so scared.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you. As a kid.
Alex never, almost never watched any of the other Indiana Jones movies, but he powered through it.
Yeah.
And then we got to the monkey brain scene. And Alex had to
Yeah.
power through that too. I didn't realize Temple of Doom was technically the first movie
Hmm.
because that is probably the most serious out of all of them. And then, you know, after I finally finished it, my mom was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to McDonald's. Do you want me to see if they have any of the other Indiana Jones movies?" And I was like, "Yeah." So she came home with Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Wow.
So I watched that one, and that same night, I loved that movie so much. I was like, "Mom, I want to see the third one." She went back to McDonald's, bought another Big Mac, and specifically asked for the last movie, which was The Last Crusade, which was which is actually my favorite Indiana Jones movie,
Mm.
of the original three.
Yeah.
And as we talked about before the show, I didn't realize it was so campy until I rewatched it because it is such a kid movie, like
Mm.
in general. But I mean, it's such a cool franchise. Did you ever watch the show, Young
N-
Indiana Jones?
No. No, I never did.
Oh, that must have been a '90s thing. It was like what could I attribute it to? Like, did you ever watch Sequest?
No.
Buffy?
Yes, love Buffy and
All
Angel,
right.
the whole thing.
Like a serialized drama. Like, basically, the idea was it was him as a kid, and his dad was dragging him around the world, and that's how he got into archaeology
Okay,
in the
yeah,
first place, and that was the whole premise. And then he
got it.
got into mischief. So when he was an adult, it explains why, in the Last Crusade, why he's not scared by men with guns and stuff like that because he's been exposed to it his whole life, apparently.
Yeah.
Um, but what was the other thing about indie? So what the new movies
Mm-hmm.
as an adult? Crystal Skull. Let's just
Yeah.
get it out of the way. Let's just.
Yeah.
What do you
Just
think?
general thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember I was in high school, I think, when it came out, and my buddy's dad got tickets for all of us to go see it. And this was like not opening day, but maybe the day after. Like if it
Father of
came
the
out,
Year, right there.
basically, yeah. And I remember us sitting in like the back row. Nobody was in the theater. It was like a Friday, like right after school. We go and see it. We were all super excited. My buddy's dad, especially, was just a huge Indiana Jones fan. And this was like at peak popularity for Shia LaBeouf, right? Naturally,
Mm-hmm.
post Transformers, I think. So he's like basically today's Chris Pratt, Ryan Reynolds, Tom Holland type of deal. And I thought it was like, while I was watching it, I'm like, okay, there are parts of this that are okay, kind of fun. But it's been so long since I watched it, it's difficult for me to give like this kind of deep dive review. But one thing I do remember distinctly is the end of the movie and them, I don't know, on some cliffside looking out in the distance. And I don't remember if like a spaceship takes off or something like that, but there's some weird tie to aliens. And if it's Indy or one of the other characters makes a comment and says something to the effect of like, they've gone to the beyond. And the other guy says, no, they've gone beyond the beyond. And I remember just an audible sigh of just complete disappointment from my buddy's dad. Like, what the hell did we just watch? Like, what a disgrace for the Indiana Jones franchise and character that you brought Harrison Ford back for this. And I have not even watched Dial of Destiny, so I can't really
Oh, it
comment
wasn't
on
that
that.
bad. Wasn't that
Yeah,
bad.
I heard it was fine, but yeah, Crystal Skull was certainly interesting to say the least. But what about you?
Uh, never saw it in the theater. The Dial of Destiny, I saw that because it was on Amazon. But the funny thing is, we were about to rent it, and I told Katie, I was like, I've never seen Crystal Skull, and she goes, "Oh, we own that," and I'm like, "No, we don't," and she goes, "Yeah, I owned it when I moved in," and I'm like, "Really?" So sure enough, I go in this rack behind me, and there it is on Blu-ray. So I said, okay, well, before we do that, maybe we should watch it. At least this way we don't spend any money. And then at the end of it, she's like, what do you think? I'm like, I want my 3 hours back. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Shia LaBeouf, especially now since he's lost his mind. But
I shouldn't laugh, but yeah.
but I'm just watching it, and I'm just like, this is like all the stunt scenes that they didn't want him to do in Transformers.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't help but think, this hear me out here. This is an argument I had, and you tell me if you agree or disagree here. Whoever came up with this script, whoever wrote and choreographed these action and chase scenes, played a Tomb Raider game, an
Mm.
Uncharted game, as opposed to watching what happened in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Because it felt and looked very video gamey
Mm-hmm.
by comparison, right? Now,
Yeah.
mind you, going back and watching Last Crusade, the part with the tank is a little video gamey, fighting dudes on top of the tank. Nobody bothers to stop it, you know?
Yeah.
People are flying all over the place. There's Wilhelm screams all over. There's people shooting. Nobody's hitting anybody. But for whatever reason, it just felt more believable as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to this, which clearly just like I felt like, this is how you mask a loading screen. was very
Hmm.
weird. And and then when we got to Dial of Destiny, some of that was still there, but it wasn't as egregious. I felt like they kind of dialed it back and up the ante a little bit. But
Hmm.
that could also just be the time, because I look back at actiony movies from like that 2006 to 2010 era,
Yeah,
and everything looks a little campy. And
it
I think
does.
that's like because now we're using green screens a bit more. And
Hmm.
in the case of episode 2, Attack of the Clones, I think 70% of that movie is in front of nothing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I know, like, in the case of the Hobbit movies, my boy Ian McKellen said as an actor, it was probably the most uncomfortable he's ever been,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like I'm acting to nothing,
Yeah.
literally. And I think there was a lot of growing pains. Well, today you can tell, like, save, special effects budgets. I feel it looks like the actors and actresses are much more comfortable doing that now, or maybe
Hmm.
the prompts they have are a little bit more, like, it's not just a guy in a blue suit just standing there like this the whole time. Like, they know they have more direction,
Yeah.
so it looks a bit more natural, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but to that end, what about that video game comparison? Do you think that's accurate?
I think it is. I mean, I think that really is just kind of a product of that era, and kind of what action movies were becoming. So it's been a while since I've seen Crystal Skull, but now that you kind of bring that up, those types of, I want to say cinematic on the Uncharted side, like I think Uncharted 4, when he's like hanging from the rope being dragged by a jeep across a bridge type of thing,
I
like
kill
those
you.
types of sequence. Yeah, those types of sequences, it definitely ring true for Crystal Skull for sure. Now Dial of Destiny again, I can't speak to because I haven't seen it yet, but um, yeah, I could see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, then Dial of Destiny you haven't seen. So now we'll turn it over to the video game side. So who did you discover first? Was it Tomb Raider, Nathan Drake, or you really can't remember?
Definitely Tomb Raider. Yeah, because my mom's boyfriend back way back when, he had a PlayStation once. This is like shortly after my parents got divorced. I had not gotten a PS1 of my own yet. He had one, and he had like the typical types of like if today someone has FIFA, Assassin's Creed, Madden, and maybe Fortnite, back on the PS1, like the typical games were kind of like maybe Cool Borders, Madden, Tomb Raider, right? And he had Tomb Raider. And I remember putting it in once as a 7, 8 year old kid, you get over like the polygonal makeup of Lara Croft, the character. I could not get into the game from a gameplay side of things at all. And this is not where Baby Rusty ran into trouble with puzzles because I never got that far. I couldn't stand the controls with the
Oh,
dual
they're
shock. Like
horrible.
using the D-pad to control her, and it was just so robotic. It just felt impossible to progress the game at all. So definitely Tomb Raider. It wasn't until I was in high school, like when Uncharted came out, that I discovered obviously Uncharted. But I do like the Tomb Raider reboot quite a bit. But we'll get into that eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I got the first Tomb Raider for Christmas, and for me, I mean, obviously I'm a little bit older, so it was twofold. It was the Indiana Jones aesthetic, and then this is my ideal woman. At the time, at the time,
Sure.
British and pointy. But
Yeah.
the game itself, though, truthfully, is not that good. Like,
Hmm.
it's a big load of nothing with tank controls, and it wants you to move in 3D, but nothing else was doing that.
Hmm.
So when you're like, oh, I'm on like the third level of Tomb Raider, it's like you're a freaking genius, you know? But the second game, I don't know if you've ever played that one.
I
Um,
don't know. I don't think so.
they refined it so much. Um, it felt better. You weren't just stuck in one area. You were like in Venice. The environmental puzzles and everything else were a lot more intuitive. You still need a strategy guide for it, but the second game is an absolute treat. But to your point, after that, I kind of dropped off, and then there was like four more.
Hmm.
And I kind of just ignored them just because I was like, really wasn't. It wasn't until the reboots and
Mm-hmm.
I saw that trailer for the first one, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, ooh, like now, and this is where I tie it back to Indiana Jones. They were going for that whole thing because you think about it, in the indie movies, he gets his ass kicked a lot.
Yeah.
Like he's not a tough guy. You
No.
know, he's a archaeologist, which I did forget to ask you. As a kid, did you ever want to be an archaeologist because of these movies?
Not so much because of these movies, but I did love history and speaking specifically to Indiana Jones, just the idea of being in this like massive library and studying like mythological artifacts, like just biblical things just really fascinated me. Not necessarily from like a religious standpoint, but I just kind of loved the idea of traveling the world. My dad also had a subscription to National Geographic and oftentimes watched the History Channel. So like that just kind of built upon my interest in archaeology, history, things like that. So absolutely.
So, funny thing, right? So, my dad's originally from Egypt. So, what is Egypt known for?
The pyramids.
What do you think my dad went to college for?
I have no. I mean, archaeology.
Archaeology.
Wow.
So, obviously, he didn't do it. But as a kid, used to tell me, "Oh, I have a degree in archaeology," and I'm thinking of Indiana Jones. I'm imagining my dad like getting shot at and like running around doing
Yeah.
all this stuff. And then when I got older, I eventually just asked him. I was like, "Why'd you drop the archaeology?" He just goes, "Alex, you don't get money."
Yeah.
It's all pro bono scientists. I wanted to move to America and have a wife and kids. I can't be sitting in the dirt digging up Coca-Cola cans all day. It's like,
Yeah.
you never found anything cool? He's like, nope, never found anything. He's like, truthfully, I sat in the museum most of the time because he would curate the collection for
Mm,
whatever they had come in. So, like, from that perspective, as like a historian for antiquities, he's like, that part's really cool, but it's not as glamorous as these movies make you think.
yeah, for sure.
So I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'll study economics then.
Yeah. Yep.
um, but yeah, but going back to Tomb Raider, but just seeing that trailer for the reboot and just seeing how, not that she looked more human, but the fact that it's like 0 to 60 within
Hmm.
15 seconds, I was just like, oh man, like this looks so good.
Yeah.
And, there was more of a plot to it. Alex is a much more mature gamer, was into seeing character growth and everything else. And then, the whole premise about it, what was the slogan? I'm a survivor. Like, I thought
Yeah.
that was really cool too.
Hmm.
Um, but I played that obviously after Uncharted. But
Hmm.
my initial, what's the word I want to use? Um, my initial like reaction to Uncharted is Indiana Jones wannabe. I hate this gunplay. Tell me about your initial reaction to Uncharted, because I came in late, truthfully.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing you have to kind of acknowledge about both Tomb Raider and Uncharted is that both of them are imitating different aspects of Indiana Jones because he laid the foundation as the true archaeological treasure hunting, world globetrotting person, right? Adventurer, I guess. And but Nathan Drake specifically still really tries to kind of imitate that charming, maybe a little bit sarcastic, always way in over his head type of personality that Indiana Jones to some extent also has. So, yeah, I can definitely see a lot of that. My first experience playing Uncharted way back when on my YouTube channel, there was someone that like very graciously gifted me a PlayStation 3 and like a handful of games. And it was one of those weird situations where it's like, this is really weird to accept, but they like insisted, and I'm not going to go into the details, but I got a PS3, but they gifted me Uncharted 2. And so I played the second game before actually ever playing the first, and eventually went back, played the first, and the rest is history in terms of my experience with the series. But my, I would say at the time, I probably felt similarly to you in terms of the gunplay. It felt kind of Grand Theft Auto-y with the weird aim reticle. That definitely wasn't the focus. You had kind of these, as a huge fan of platformers, you had at the time it was this kind of seemingly novel wall climbing mechanic and the platforming stuff that they were doing. And then in the third or fourth game, whenever they introduced like the hook shot or like the grappling thing that you were just like throwing the wire and swinging from thing to thing, um, it was intended to be, I guess, something that was maybe groundbreaking, but it really wasn't. I would say the gameplay never really bothered me too much, and I'm someone now that probably plays the Uncharted trilogy almost every year or every other year. I've played those games so many times. I love Uncharted, so the gameplay never was too big of a hurdle for me to clear, I would say.
So let's back this up a little bit. So in comparison of the Tomb Raider reboot and Uncharted, of those two, which do you prefer?
Uncharted, but I like them for very different reasons. Like Naughty Dog is known, especially in the newer era, for their storytelling, character development, and writing, right? And really building a cast of characters that you care about. You enjoy kind of seeing their arcs. And I felt like Tomb Raider, I don't know if they just tried too hard to lean into or capitalize on the success of Uncharted, but I just felt like that first game, isolated from the rest of the trilogy, I don't want to say it's perfect, but it's damn good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Rise of the Tomb Raider is just as good, if not better. And Shadow, while I enjoyed it, it just goes so off the rails into like afternoon sci-fi channel C movie craziness that it's like, what is happening here? Like end of the world nonsense,
It's the
right?
Crystal Skull of the trilogy.
It is. And I just felt like if they had stuck the landing and had more of a complete story for Lara, I think Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics probably would have made a fourth game. But it
Yeah.
just felt like Shadow was just such a weird departure from what made the first game great and introducing Lara, to your point, more humanized, kind of grounded in reality, acknowledged her fear, and kind of coping with the trauma of her father, spoilers, killing himself, but did he really type of thing. They explore more of that in Rise and Shadow again. It just kind of goes off the rails. So I prefer Uncharted because it felt like they really always had a clear vision for where they were going with the story, and they really didn't with Tomb Raider.
Yeah, like I almost feel like so with the Indiana Jones movies, it's kind of like a vignette thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like and I'll compare this to Ease a bit. The Ease games come out of sequence, right? Like,
Hmm.
Ease 1 and 2 are technically not even 1 and 2. Ease Origins first one. But the whole idea behind Adol Christensen getting into these adventures, and I've read this somewhere and I can't remember where, is that it's basically me telling you a story. Like, let me tell you about the time Adol Christensen got stranded on an island. In
Hmm.
this case, it's like, let me tell you about the time Indiana Jones found the Ark of the Covenant, like that sort of thing. So it's a self contained thing, but it has similar themes to it because of the
Hmm.
time frame it took place in, era World War II, pre World War II, N word because YouTube doesn't like it, Germany,
Hmm.
etc., etc. And it
Yep.
gives you a nice backdrop of all that stuff so you have a time and place to it. While with the first Tomb Raider game, Lara's stranded, but the second game has her on like one like those. Let me tell you about the time Laura got lost in the Himalayas. Like I
Yep.
feel like, which
Hmm.
to me makes it such a good game because it's a very grand scope.
Hmm.
But then with Shadow, it's like let me tell you about the time Laura went on this globe-trotting adventure, but the globe-trotting ends within the first like hour, and now
Yeah.
she's basically in one spot just bouncing around. So it's more self-contained, but it's kind of disguised as like this huge epic. Well, with Uncharted, and I'm going to base this off the first one because I played through the first one twice.
Hmm.
It starts off like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Sorry, not Raiders of the Lost Ark. Temple of Doom,
Hmm.
where Nate's like, "Hey, I found this thing," and then all hell breaks loose,
Yeah.
and then Sully has to bail him out, and then they get on the plane, and I can't remember if they do like the whole like transition thing, but it's just like an Indiana Jones transition where it's like, oh well, if we go here and do this, that, and the third, we may be able to get some answers, and then whitewash or pan over, and now we're in the
Yeah.
next area. you
Yeah.
know? So definitely borrowing a lot of that
Hmm.
stuff. And then the second game, it opens up with that huge gunfight, like that huge set piece. Like we're capitalizing on that action movie bit, but we're also doing the so let me tell you how I got here
Exactly. Yep.
sort of thing, which is not an Indiana Jones thing. That's kind of like a
Hmm.
more of a modern, like I'll say preteen comedy thing,
Hmm.
but it was also being the marketing was very different at the time. Kind of like, Raiders of the Lost, not Raiders of the Lost Ark, Last Crusade. They have Sean Connery as more of comic relief
Hmm.
because it's supposed to be for kids, and in this case they're marketing it towards like that audience, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in that age category, you don't notice any of this stuff until like you actually take a deeper look at all this stuff, as I tell this to somebody who's sleep deprived. But
Yeah.
it's like me really thinking about it. I'm like, there was like a lot going on. So, and obviously I'm older than you. So it's almost like
Hmm.
depending on when you play these things, your interpretations are ultimately different,
For
you
sure.
know?
Yeah.
So, because for me, I prefer Tomb Raider
Hmm.
over Uncharted. And that's because of the puzzle solving, and the idea of like, going into a tomb and trying to solve something because that's what Indy had to do
Hmm.
all the time. Which brings me to my next point, the Great Circle, which is not the game du jour, but
Hmm.
by circumstance, by happenstance, both of us played it.
Hmm.
Now, gut reaction to this question from you.
Yeah.
Could this have been an Indiana Jones movie?
Absolutely. I think it's a I think this is the best Indiana Jones story since The Last Crusade. No doubt. And I think it's the diehard Indiana Jones fans would probably say, "How dare you?" But I think this is right. It's close to being up there with some of the best Indiana Jones storytelling. And I think that's because I believe Spielberg was at least consulted when the story was being written. I think Todd Howard has a deep care and love for telling an authentic Indiana Jones story. And you see that in this game on full display. And one of the things I told you, and I think I may have even said it in one of my videos when I was kind of talking through my experience with the game, is this is a love letter to Indiana Jones fans. And if you've
Mm-hmm.
not seen the Indiana Jones movies, one, I don't think you will appreciate this game very much. And you're doing yourself a disservice playing this game without having watched the films.
I 150% agree with you because there's certain parts in this game, certain things that happen where you're like, dude, it's a tip of the hat, no pun intended. But
Yeah.
it's literally a tip of the hat. It's a nod to certain things. Like the whole bit with the fire, that's right out of the Last Crusade,
Hmm.
you know? And by the way, there's a part in the Last Crusade, slight spoiler here. If you go into a tomb and you go, "Oh, it's not water, it's petroleum." Why would you light a torch?
Not
Like
smart.
I thought you were a professor at a college. Bro, come on, you know?
Hmm.
But there were so many things in this game that were aspects from those original movies. But it wasn't like shoved in there like look what we did. It was shoved
Exactly.
it was in universe.
Hmm.
And what I think was probably the best aspect of the whole thing, you're not a gun-toting badass.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
die in like
Absolutely.
2 hits.
Hmm.
And there are more cutscenes and dialogue scenes than there are set piece action cutscenes, which I think is absolutely brilliant, right?
I agree because Uncharted, you're not looking for the next major gunfight in a giant room waiting for 4 to 5 waves of guys to come at you. You don't really care about those moments. That is an obstacle for you as the player to get to that next major cinematic
Mm-hmm.
moment or cutscene with your favorite characters like Elena and Sully. Completely contrast that with the Great Circle. Looking back on the game, slight spoilers, the airplane moment, that's like the major
Oh, so good.
set, which is great, but like that's like the only major piece moment that I can really recall off the cuff, kind of sleep deprived, right? Because I wasn't looking forward to that next set piece moment because they were really few and far between. And when they did happen, they were earned moments, I feel like.
And that particular scene, I even said to you after I finished it,
You
I
did.
said they did this exactly the way it would be in a movie. It wasn't like these stupid bits where it's like, oh no, I fell down a pipe and now I have to maneuver around all this stuff for the next 30 to 45 minutes because we have to hide loading screens. This was literally, we have to get out of here. Here's a way out. It's gonna take 2.5, 3 minutes tops.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not difficult or annoying or cheap. It's to keep you invested. And then the second you're like, oh, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I really enjoy, and I know games do this, I don't think the older Uncharted's did this. Tomb Raider certainly did not do it. Where in engine, it would transition from like, you squeezing through like one of those things, again, mask loading screens. It would go right into a cutscene.
Mm-hmm.
And it would start with like Indy surveying a room, right? Like with a torch, like this, which is to get those screens loaded up in the
Mm-hmm.
background with something they'd already pre-generated.
Yeah.
So it felt like cinematic. It felt cinematic because in a film, when you want to build tension and suspense, you stay on one thing for just 1 second too long.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, okay. Like that sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't help it to your point. I'm just like, these guys did their homework, man. Machine Games can't miss, except with
Mm-hmm.
Youngblood. But Machine
Yeah, that was
Games
bad.
can't miss.
Yeah.
Like they understood the assignment 150%. And now it's getting DLC. I'm like, first I was like, it doesn't need DLC
Mm-mm.
because it really doesn't. But I'm also excited to go back and experience it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I originally played it on Game Pass. I'm gonna buy a physical PS5 copy, replay it to completion. This is a game that I, somewhat retired back into the game trophy hunter. I want to go for the platinum trophy, not to jack up my trophy list, but like I genuinely want to see everything this game has to offer. And one of the things that stood out to me about Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is how much is optional. Like
Mm-hmm.
there is a story that you can do, but when you're in these different areas like the Vatican and when you're in that little village, I think in Vietnam or wherever it is, in Egypt, you can beeline it and get through these areas relatively quickly, 2 to 3 hours tops. I was trying to do every single side quest, and I would encourage folks that play this game to do the same because every side quest is literally, you talked about the Young Indiana Jones TV show. I never watched it, but each of these side quests played out like its own 20 to 30-minute episode of Indiana Jones. There was a unique cutscene in each of these sequences. It just felt like the developers wanted you to do that, but they knew it wasn't going to be for everyone, so they are optional. But if you want to enjoy the game to its fullest, I think doing and completing all of those side quests is essential to get the fullest experience from the game.
And Uncharted doesn't really do side quests that much.
No,
They do
yeah,
collectibles.
mm-hmm.
And Tomb Raider just does like challenge maps. Which
Yeah,
I mean, but they're all environmental puzzles with like buttons and stuff. Like I love that stuff. Like in the first and the second game, I was looking for the tombs all over the place. Like
yeah,
to me, that was the platforming. To your point, the nouveau climbing along walls stuff. With white paint as far as the eye can see. You
yeah,
know, I'm like that to me is what I enjoy the most. The gunplay in Uncharted, take it or like I would put that down to easy if I could,
mm-hmm.
which I didn't. I played normal because I'm like that. But if I were to go back and put on easy, just power my way through that as a distraction to get to what I want to do, which is the platforming stuff, I think it would be. I think I'd be a little bit hotter on it, but I also feel like, to your point too, with Indiana Jones, it gave you a puzzle, it gave you some stealth, gave you maybe a little bit of action, and then you got a cutscene that wasn't like 2 seconds of, oh, look over there, and then you're right back in the
Exactly.
game. It gave you brilliant voice acting. It
Hmm.
gave you excellent motion capture, and it was, you could tell, like you said, they must have consulted with some cinema people, because it didn't feel like your typical cheesy video game action cutscene
Hmm.
with jerkiness. Everything was very slow and methodical. So
Yeah. Well, and I mean, just to highlight just the slow aspects, like I went into this game as a huge fan of machine games and truthfully a little disappointed that they weren't working on the final Wolfenstein game because we've been waiting post New Colossus forever for them to finish that story out. And Youngblood was kind of this placeholder middle chapter with his daughters that you and I played co-op, and I think we spent more time talking about life than we did actually playing the game that night. But I was
game is a nice word.
yeah, I was hoping that they were going to be making that final installment, Enter Indiana Jones, so I was a little bit disappointed. But from all the trailers, I kind of figured, okay, this is going to be Wolfenstein Indiana Jones. You can stealthily walk around the map or sneak around the map and take guards out, or you can just walk in with your machine gun, your Tommy gun, your pistol, your whip, and just guns blazing take people out. I think I shot a gun once in this game. Like that is not the emphasis, and slow methodical exploration, like that is the name of the game. If Tomb Raider and Uncharted, it's third person, you're kind of taking part in Nate and Lara's adventure, you're not really in the driver's seat. Indiana Jones, you are stepping into the shoes. Like it is a life simulator for Indiana Jones. It's in the first person, and maybe to some people's detriment, because like while I enjoyed it and I thought it's unapologetically leans into the character, like the fisticuffs combat, it's scrappy, it's at times clunky and frustrating,
Punches are
but
like
that's Indiana.
fists.
Yeah, but that's kind of Indiana Jones, right? He is a scrappy fighter, he improvises, he's not some martial arts kung fu, artist. He's just kind of flying by the seat of his pants a lot of the time. And I think they captured that in the game really well.
I think the other part I really enjoyed about too, about out of the combat, when Nate discovers a solution to something, and I think it was in the third one, you put it all together, and then he kind of just has a 2 second like, wait a minute. Then he consults like his little diary, and then he figures it out. And the case of Lara, she kind of like, runs around, stares at it for a bit. You do your thing, and then she figures it out. With Indy, you walk into a room, he pulls out his journal, and it's like a 5 to 10 minute cutscene of him
Mm-hmm.
piecing everything together. And he's explaining it out loud to his partner or whomever's with him at the time. And it's not because you could say, oh, it's exposition dumping. No, he's telling the player what he's looking for,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to take over as him and have to do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think it's so clever. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
taking something that these machine games took, what these other guys were doing with Lara and Nate, and basically making it much more interactive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, almost like a point and click adventure where they were saying, if I could figure out a way how to get this pulley to move, wonder if it had something to do with the waterfall, and now you walk over there and you're like, oh, wait, there's a block here. And then, you'd pick it up and then you're like, oh, it must go into this slot over here. But then you see like there's 5 more and you don't have any more hints.
Yeah.
So, because that's the only one Indy noticed,
Mm-hmm.
and I just thought all that was just so clever. But in terms of spectacle, who do you think does it the best, though? Between the three, we'll say the three, we'll include the game at this point because it's modern.
Yeah. I
Or
think
the
it's
movie.
hard not to say Uncharted for me personally, especially when I look at like Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy and just some of those kind of more cinematic moments and just Uncharted 4 like end to end. I think when they originally revealed that game graphically and like Nate wakes up on the beach, it was like, holy crap, that looks like a real person, right? and just some of the set piece moments in there, and just the um I guess like the gravity of the situation that Nate gets himself into. And I think we're going to maybe talk about this later in the agenda in terms of like what our favorite Uncharted is. So maybe I won't go into that right now. But I think just in terms of pure spectacle and exciting the player to get to that next major moment and how things are going to come to a conclusion, for me, Uncharted has done that best. Leaning more into 4 and Lost Legacy, maybe a little bit of 2, 1 and 3 I enjoyed, but not as much as the others in terms of the spectacle aspect. But
So,
I would say Indiana Jones comes close after that, and then probably Tomb Raider is the last for me.
and what about like the actual like archaeology Tomb Raider? We'll call it the Tomb Raider part.
Yeah, I mean, just by pure name association, it's probably Lara.
Well, let's say
Um,
actually here, let me back it up. Who do you think did puzzles better? And that includes Great Circle.
I'm probably gonna say the Great Circle, like Indiana Jones.
All right, so now let's
Um,
remove the Great Circle because that's my answer too.
yeah. Um, Removing that, Uncharted is probably more fresh in my mind. It's been a while since I've played the Tomb Raider trilogy. And like there are specific Uncharted puzzles I can pull out of my head right now. Like, oh yep, I remember that in Lost Legacy and this in 4 and this in 2. Tomb Raider less so, but I do remember enjoying discovering tombs, especially in the first game, because it was less
Yeah.
central to the game. It was more optional content, and I enjoyed that. But purely in the puzzle solving, I'll still probably stick with Uncharted for me personally.
Okay. And then in terms of not character development, but like leading man or lady between the three. I know the answer to this one, so give me who your number two is.
Indiana Jones is probably 2. Yeah.
Ma. Yeah,
But I
no.
love Laura's arc in that first game, right? To your point, like the earlier games, she was more sure of herself. In the very beginning, she's kind of this seasoned Tomb Raider archaeologist, treasure hunter, however you want to describe it. Whereas in the first reboot game, she crashes on this island. She is like fearful for her life. She kind of just feels like she's, to your point earlier, surviving, trying to find her friends. She finds the pickaxe. She finds the dual pistols towards the end, the bow and arrow, and she's trying to like really make sense of all of this all at once, and use these things to her benefit, and a lot of on the job learning, which I loved. I thought it was so great how they do that. But I'm still gonna probably say Uncharted, Indiana Jones, Tomb Raider.
Yeah, see, in my case, it goes Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones, Uncharted. And that's where I think it's interesting because I feel like all of the taking Indiana Jones out of it, Tomb Raider and Uncharted do a lot of the same thing but
Mm,
differently, and it appeals to me and it appeals to you for very different reasons,
absolutely.
right? Um, One thing with the Uncharted movies, I've always said that it's like freaking Michael Bay. Like to me, that's what those games are.
Yep,
While a
popcorn
Tomb
fun.
yeah, while with Tomb Raider, I always consider them to be more of like an introverted experience with
Mm-hmm.
spectacle in the background, right? Like getting lost in the Himalayas, but it's just you.
Mm-hmm.
While, Nate has Sully, whoever his partner is, I forgot the woman's name,
Chloe.
Chloe. And then in the case of Indy, he always has a number two, whether it be a leading lady or a kid for whatever reason. But he
Mm-hmm.
always had a number two with him, somebody to bounce off of, which kind of leads into the game du jour because originally, and again, this is twofold here, or quadfold, I guess, we played Lara Croft in The Guardian of Light as a co op experience.
Mm-hmm.
And to that point, too, the other reason why I thought this would be a really good game to co op, besides it being co op and us playing something at the same pace, Indy always has a number two, Nate always has a number two, and Laura always has somebody on a walkie talkie.
It's true.
So it
Yeah.
only makes sense that two people go into a tomb to raid it or uncover it or discover it, or in this case, put something back. And therefore, what better thing to co-op? So, your initial impressions of this game, taking out how difficult it was, even on modern hardware, to get the co-op part working. What
Yeah, I don't
did
know
you
what was
think of it?
worse.
What did you think of
Yeah.
it?
I don't know what was worse, trying to get us all synced up for Perfect Dark that one night or playing this co-op. But we eventually got it to work. We got there. And
So not easy.
yeah, but we made it work. And of this era, there's maybe, removing the indie darlings like Fez and Super Meat Boy and Limbo, there's maybe no better example from my recollection of the Xbox Live Arcade type games than this one. I just feel like it's the perfect game to pay 1,200 Microsoft points, whatever that equated to back then.
I forgot about that.
And buying this on a Friday night with your friend, ordering a pizza, getting a 2 liter of Diet Coke, or the soda of your choosing, and just knocking this out on like a Friday night, Saturday night type of deal. Right now, you and I, because we're adults now and there's a million things going on, I think we
Took
beat
us
this
8
game over.
months.
Exactly. Took us several weeks, if not months, to actually roll credits on this. But yeah, I mean, just one of those types of games where maybe 4 to 6 hours based on your experience level, pretty snappy levels, getting through them in anywhere from like 5 to 20 minutes. And just a fun cooperative experience. I think we laughed for probably all the wrong reasons while we were
Yeah.
playing it. But no, this was a good time, is my gut reaction.
Yeah, I think for me the most enjoyable part of this, to start, I'm just going to come out and say it, was the opening cutscene. Because it's in a comic book style, which I didn't expect, but I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And you played as Lara, and I played as the Guardian of Light, who is voiced by the same guy who does the voice for Winnie the Pooh. And I
Yeah,
recognized it immediately
you
and
did.
said, I'm fucking Winnie the Pooh. And
Yeah.
you're like, no, you're not. I'm like, no, this is the same voice actor as Winnie the Pooh. It's like Alan Cummings or something. And I looked
Hmm.
up, I was like, oh my God, it is. And then the villain, who is Exotololol or whatever his name is
Yeah.
the voice actor for Pete from Goof Troop. And he's just doing the Pete voice, and it doesn't fit at all. And
No.
I'm like, oh, this is Game of the Year material right here. We haven't even done
Hmm.
anything yet. We're not even through the tutorial, and I'm already on board with this. It felt campy,
Hmm.
but you even said, yeah, but at the time, getting these guys to do voiceovers was probably a big deal.
Yeah.
As opposed to now, where it's like you see them at a fan expo convention, and you're like, oh, I used to watch you when I was 5.
Yeah.
But just coming that, and then going into that initial gameplay, which I'll be honest, very intuitive for the co-op stuff. Like, it
Hmm.
didn't feel shoehorned in. Like, I felt like
No.
each of us had unique abilities that really complemented each other to get through to our objectives, right?
Hmm.
That I
Yeah.
thought, and you said the same thing. We were both like, wow, this is a lot better than I thought, you
Hmm.
know? But to your point too, you also said this is something you would order a pizza and hammer it out in a weekend. When you come back 4 weeks later, you kind of forget that you can jump on my shield to get
Yeah.
to a high to jump on a high point, or how to use the grappling hook,
Yep.
or in my case, which button is jump and which button is fire a gun. So you end
Yeah.
up using all your ammo when you're trying to jump across a cliff. There was honestly, it's one of those things where the jank, it's Blink territory. That's all I could say. It's like
Yeah.
you'd be like, oh, this isn't janky enough, but I can get behind this. Like,
Hmm.
that's kind of what I was getting with it. But it was, you said, we laughed for all the wrong reasons.
We did. Yeah. And one of my favorite moments too was before we broke the first time, like before we took a break and said, okay, we'll come back to this in a week or two. was like so to kind of set the scene, I guess, for folks that aren't familiar with the game, it's kind of like an isometric Diablo type perspective,
Mm-hmm.
like twin stick shootery type, like using your weapons and guns. Like you were saying, I'm Lara, you're the Guardian of Light character, and there was like, I don't know, anywhere from like 10 to 12 different levels. Some of them ranged from like 5 minutes, others took like 25 to 30 plus minutes to get through. And a lot of the time, it's very intuitive, quick, snappy puzzle solving where I can use like my grappling hook to get across a gap, and then I can shoot the grappling hook across the the gap, and you can kind of jump on the wire and walk across type of thing. Like very easy, intuitive type stuff. But then towards the end of one of the levels, it was almost like a Crash Bandicoot running away from a boulder type sequence.
Yeah.
And you had all these platforms where naturally there were spikes kind of coming up and down. It was also one of the things that as you jump and walking on the platforms, they're kind of following, like, think Mario Party 2 type minigame thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I just, for the life of us, could not get through this. And I just remember hearing Katie, like, through your own microphone, basically calling us like morons. Like, what are you guys doing? This isn't that hard. Come on, guys. You got to get through
At
this.
one point, she was like, "Give me the controller." She's like, "If he
Yeah.
dies and I still live, it keeps going." I'm like, "Yes, it does." And she's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, if you die this time," and then we got through it. And she was like, "Damn it!" She was ready to
Yeah.
show me because she's finished all the Crash Bandicoot games. She hasn't 100%ed them, but she's like she is like a surgeon with certain types of games, and those, if it's a level that is if it's a 2D platformer where the camera pushes you, like in Super Mario 3, Super Mario Brothers
Mm-hmm.
3, she can't do it. She'll give me the controller because I'm really good at those. But if it's something where you're running away from the camera or towards the camera, I'm just like, "Baby, you doing something right now?
Yeah.
Come here." It's like a savant. She's just like really good with those things. So the fact that she was watching us do this, like I turned around, she's like, like, what is happening?
Meanwhile, you and I are getting progressively worse the more times we attempt it. Like it was, it was getting
Yeah.
so bad.
The first time we were almost at the end. The second time we'd even make it past the opening.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there were some puzzles that we couldn't figure out, and I was just like, you know what? Like we basically glitched our way to the solution for a few of them.
Couple times. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and then a little spoiler, if anybody does want to co-op this game, if for whatever reason one of you can make it across a pit and the other guy can't, just kill yourself because it'll spawn you next to the person who got over the gap.
That's right. We did that more times than we could probably count, to be
I
honest.
think we did that during a boss too. Um,
Yeah. Sounds about right.
but I mean, do you think it captured like any of the essence of like an Uncharted, a Tomb Raider, and Indiana Jones thing in terms of what it was?
Honestly, you could have called this game Guardian of Light and removed the Tomb Raider Lara Croft name entirely and just put a different generic character in. And I think we still would have had fun, but outside of actually being in a location that I would expect Lara Croft to be in, I don't think it does much to like capture the essence of Tomb Raider very well necessarily.
No,
But I'm
no,
curious if you feel differently.
no, not at all. I mean, I was even to your point, like, okay, yeah, there's puzzle solving. You know, it has like a little bit of like that, you know, environmental puzzle, Tomb Raider, you know, Uncharted thing, a little bit of Indiana Jones, you know, figuring stuff out and all that stuff, a little bit of the supernatural, you know, tied into some ancient history. But it could have been anybody,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Some people, like, I'll use Shadow Complex, for example. Some people are like, this is the best, you know, Metroid style Metal Gear I've ever played. You know? It could be anybody. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be Solid Snake. It doesn't need to be Lara Croft. It could have just been, you know, Adam Venture, whatever the heck his name is, you know?
Hey, put some respect on Adam Venture Origin's name. All right, that's a great Uncharted, like for sure.
But it to that point, just like it was for marketing, or the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it was Eidos and they're like, hey, we got this license, and they're maybe because they were trying to bring it back, they're like, we have to get this familiar. They make it, to your point, a quick Friday night co-op experience because it was novel at the time.
Yeah,
you know, and now we have games like your Split Fictions and everything else. To me, that is the modern co-op experience. If they were to if he was or anybody was ever to figure out a game in the style of a Tomb Raider, an Uncharted, and made a co-op like that, but like, you know, more exploratory, dude, I'd be on
Mm-hmm.
board.
Yeah.
Like
No, that'd be great.
150%.
Mm-hmm.
150%. But what about the difficulty to this whole thing? Because it is kind of Diablo-esque. I mean, you do pick up guns and stuff, and there are options to get better gear. But I felt like it was just there because that's what was popular at the time, like with your
Mm-hmm.
torchlights and your death spanks and stuff like that. You know, basically what
Yeah,
was on Xbox Live.
exactly. And I don't feel like getting the grenade launcher or the dual wielding assault rifles and things like that, it was like, oh my goodness, Alex, now we're unstoppable. You know, it just kind of felt like it was just introducing new weapons for the sake of it, and it kind of made it, I guess, more fun. But yeah, from an overall difficulty side of things, I really believe like the first 5 levels of this game, perfect's too strong of a word, but like really, really good.
Mm.
And then after that, I don't want to say it overstayed its welcome. It just felt like there was too much game, like maybe too much padding. Like they said, this game needs to be at least 6 hours long. And like, all right, well, we only have 7 levels, so I guess we got to make 5 more, right? And you and I don't know if it was just maybe it was too hot outside, just general fatigue or whatever it was. But by the end, I think both of us were kind of like, all right, let's wrap it up here. This Guardian of the Light, this is overstaying its welcome at this point because either the puzzles were too hard or there were instances where it was like Dark Souls sewers, Dark Souls swampy type
Yeah.
areas where we were getting poisoned all the time and just dying. And it was just frustrating, but not for the right reasons, I don't feel like.
I knew it was going downhill when I'd be like, hey, you want to do the optional? You're like, keep going. I was like, okay, I guess we're not doing the optional stuff.
Yeah, because there are optional like little dungeon tomb things.
And then the whole thing with the soccer balls, and I was like, oh, I played tons of Breath of the Wild. I'm really good at these. And sure enough, man, like, I mean, you just watched me the whole time. I was like backing up, playing with the physics and everything. I was like, oh, this is easy. But
Yeah,
it
because
still
you basically had
took
to like
half an
plant.
hour.
Yeah, because you basically had to plant like little mines behind this boulder to basically elevate it or shoot it up into this bucket or basket. And you had to do. There were like at least 3 major puzzles exactly like that.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like, to your point, it overstayed its welcome. It was like, look at the cool idea, and then, you know, much like every other video game, at the end you have to rehash everything you learned. But in
Mm-hmm.
this case, it was basically giving you pop quizzes every other screen. So now
Yeah.
it's like, okay, this isn't funny. This isn't fun anymore. Or like the whole thing where we had to set the mines to push the thing up to stop the gunfire so that you could run between to put a rock in there, and all these moving parts that were great for the co-op part by, you know, coordinating. Like
Mm-hmm.
that I thought was really good, but you can't incorporate so many mechanics to the point where if one player is dozing off or just completely disinterested, the whole thing just goes to hell, you know?
Yeah.
And I felt like towards the end it was starting to get to that. Where I was like, "Do you want to take a break?" Yes. Like when somebody says that, I'm like, "Okay, like this gotta cut. This gotta go. We
Yeah.
got we
For
gotta
sure.
cut it." And even the last boss fight, I was like, "This is like 3 sequences too much."
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. Yeah.
And the ending cutscene. Last thing I want to say about this game. That was probably, if anything could have been longer, it could have been that ending cutscene. Because it was
Yeah.
literally like 5 seconds and then the credits.
Yeah. No, it was. I don't even know why it was that short, but yeah, it just kind of felt like, wow, we beat the boss and this is what we're rewarded with.
Yeah, it was like, so let me get this straight. You made me suffer through the last 8 levels. And then in the end, it's like, well, we saved the day. We sure did.
Yeah, we did.
We
That was it.
sure did. And you don't even get the at the bottom of the screen. You don't even get that.
Yeah.
Nothing. But that being said, would you play the sequel?
I would. I would. Yeah, not right away. I think we need some distance, right? I think we probably need some time to think about all of the things that we really loved about Guardian of Light and not the things that drove us mad. But yeah, what is the second one? Like Legend of Osiris or something like
Yeah,
that?
and
Or
I was gonna say I think next time we should play it on the Switch because
mm,
at least that way, you know, A, it's handheld, and two, if there is a sequence that we can't get through, I'm not gonna get made fun of by my wife.
there you go. Yeah.
Being like, I thought you were good at video games, Alex. It's like I
Yeah.
am. But yeah, I mean, I really I enjoyed it. Like ultimately I really did enjoy it, but I don't know, like I feel like this should have been an afternoon thing. This should have been 3.5, 4 hours and that's it. But
Yes.
I don't know if you knew this. If you played single player, all the puzzles change.
Really?
They're all designed for single player at that point.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty fascinating that they basically made two games. I mean, they'd have to, right? Because
They
there were
had
things that
enough
you and I were
levels
doing.
for it.
Yeah, they did. But I mean, just thinking back on how you and I solve certain puzzles, there's no way someone could do that by themselves.
Yeah,
And I,
no.
I doubt that the AI would be smart enough to do the things that you would need the AI controlled player to do to be successful. Because I mean, my God, you and I half the time couldn't figure it out as two real human beings. So I can't
Yeah, and
imagine
then
they could
even then
program.
some of our solutions weren't even the way they wanted us to do it. We're just like, hey,
That's
let's
exactly
try
right.
this and see if it works. It's like-
Yeah. Oh my
so
gosh.
so I was gonna say, in 2005 versus today, would you still play this? I think the answer is yes. But in between your favorite Tomb Raider game, this game, and your favorite Uncharted game, give me a ranking.
Oh my goodness. Well, spoiler alert, this is at the bottom of the list, but I think that speaks less to this game specifically and more just how fond I am of those other games. Um, do you want me to just rank the Uncharted and Tomb Raider games all together?
No, 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 no. I mean, like, if two is your favorite, you're like, oh, it goes like two, Shadow, Guardian of Light, or something like that.
Yeah, so it'd be like Uncharted 4 way at the top. Then you have Rise of the Tomb Raider below that, and Guardian of the Light way down at the bottom.
So for me, it's Rise of the Tomb Raider, Guardian of Light, and then Uncharted 2.
Mm.
But, and it's not because I think Uncharted 3 is my least favorite out of all of them, by the way. It's not because Uncharted 2 is a bad game. It's just because if we take the game out of it and we think about like overall experience, I enjoyed my time playing this game with you more than I did playing Uncharted 2 because I was kind of just going from point to point to point to point because I came into it so late. As a matter of fact, I only play
Mm.
the Uncharted games because my wife likes watching them.
Really? And when was that? When did you kind of go through them?
So, because I had rebought Uncharted 1. And, because I was like, let me try this again. Like, the second one came out, everybody was talking about it at the time. I was like, let me try this. I started playing it one day and I was like, yeah, I'll come back to it later. Then the third game came out. And then I was like, all right, let me try this again. So I started playing the first one. She sat down on the couch and she's like, this is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, it's kind of like a hip Indiana Jones. And I was like, okay, well, there's a second one. She's like, do we have it? And I'm like, no, no. She's like, you should go buy it. So then I bought it and then I finished it. And, we both really enjoyed it. And then she goes, are there any more? I'm like, yeah, there's a third. The third one was $8 at this point
Wow. Yeah.
for perspective. And I'm like, yeah, there's another one. And I'm like, I am so burnt out on these games.
Yeah.
But then we played the third one, and then the endless dudes at the end, and then at that point, that's when I put my hands up. I was like, I'm done with this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then Uncharted 4 came out, and she found out about it before I did, so she sent me a link saying, well, when are you going to play this? So I bought it, I played it, I finished it, I returned it.
Wow. Okay, so you really don't have much of an affinity for Uncharted at all.
No, and it also comes from my deep rooted mentality with Naughty Dog.
Okay.
Um, Kind of like so, like I appreciate what they do, but to me, everything feels like it's on ice. You know,
Mm,
like Nate feels like he's always sliding. Same thing with Grand Theft Auto. I feel like
yep.
everybody's always sliding around. But you give me something like Mafia, where everybody's kind of solid to the ground. I feel a lot better. You
Yeah.
know,
Okay.
Gears, which is a completely different monster altogether. You know, heavy dudes solid to the ground. You know, and even the gunplay in the original Uncharted and stuff, like I'm like it. I love third person gunplay, but to
Hmm.
me, it feels so rubbery. I don't know. I don't know the best way to put it.
That's a
Well,
very fair criticism. Yeah.
while
No, I
with
totally
Tomb
get it.
Raider, I felt like she was heavier. You know, like
Hmm.
if she went up against cover, it's like a doo,
Yep.
not like a
Yeah.
sort of thing. But that's just how it is. But with the Tomb Raider games, she watched the first one when I replayed it. She watched the second one, and then by the third one, she even said the same. She goes, she's like, "This is going weird places. I don't like it."
Hmm.
She's like, "It reminds me of Crystal Skull." I was like, "That's when I said, oh, I'd never seen that one."
Yeah. I think they
So
really, I think it's a very fair critique. One of the gameplay, but certainly just like thinking about the series in its entirety, they really lost their footing with three. I think they were just the games were probably doing so well that it probably surprised Naughty Dog, and they were just kind of pumping them out one after another. And I think two was kind of its peak, and then three, everyone was kind of just like, what is going on here? Like this is they lost something with three, and then I feel like they brought it home and stuck the landing with four. But that's again just my personal opinion.
yeah, no, I thought four was good. Just like I have no affinity towards it whatsoever. I
Hmm.
was like, well, been there, done that. With the Indiana Jones game, I played it on PC because my PC can pump it out, right? Like
Hmm.
not in max, but good enough. And I was telling Kay, I was like, you have to see this. Like, this is amazing. I was like, it's from the Wolfenstein guys. And she's like, oh, cool. And then she goes on the couch, and here I come with the laptop and the plug, and she goes, oh, it's on the computer. And so I feel like maybe part of the reason why I play the Uncharted games is really for her, just
Hmm.
because I know she likes watching them. And because anytime she sees a JRPG or she sees a menu come up, she just goes, "Oh Jesus," and she leaves the room. So
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
what I play most of the time. So awesome, awesome. So my last question on this overall topic, and then we can work on getting the hell out of here. If you had the opportunity to be number two to Lara, to Indy, or to Nate in any of the games or movies or what have you, as I didn't ask you about the Tomb Raider movies because I personally have not seen any of them. I never saw the Uncharted movie.
Wow.
Katie saw
Wanted
the
to talk about
Uncharted
that.
movie. She said it wasn't half bad.
It's okay.
Who would you be number two to?
So as much as I love the Uncharted games, I think it would just have to be Indiana Jones because one, he's just such a fountain and wealth of knowledge about things I want to know about. And I feel like Nate is just so deep into just these weird theories and um the conspiracy theory type stuff about this person and that person. He kind of just rambles on about nonsense. Whereas Indiana Jones, I feel like just like the historical things that he could bring me up to speed on and tell me about, but then take me to those places and actually talk to those things in real time. And just, I don't know, I think the sense of adventure that he would bring, Nate, I feel like is kind of self-absorbed in a way that Indiana Jones isn't. Like Indy's stubborn, he's sarcastic, he is a little arrogant and all of those types of things that Nate kind of shares some of those attributes, but I just feel like Indy would just be so much more fun riding in a plane, going into a tomb, or just in a freaking library in Italy. You know what I mean? So Indy would definitely be my pick.
So Indy did it better. That's your final answer.
Well, that's a complicated question, as we've seen over the past 4.5 hours that we've been here.
I don't know. I think the more I was thinking, I feel like Tomb Raider captures the essence of Indiana Jones a lot better. But at the end of the day, and I'm cheating here, Machine Games captured the essence of Indy better than anybody else was hoping to emulate it.
Yeah, no, it's just a fact.
But if I had to pick one, I'm gonna go with Shadow of the Tomb, not Shadow of the Tomb Raider,
Rise.
Rise of the Tomb Raider. I
Yeah.
feel like that one captured the most indie feel. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uncharted again to me it's a popcorn thing, and that's
Yeah.
ultimately what it is. So,
Mm-hmm.
alrighty. So, thank you once again for doing all this stuff and
Of
staying
course.
awake because I think we're both fading here. But before I let you go, I want to know 3 things you love about this hobby besides playing video games, and don't try to pull a fast one and give me the same answers you gave me last time.
Wow.
Because I
Okay.
because I caught Fox and I had to correct him, and I didn't edit it out. I left it in. So don't be that
Yeah.
guy.
Man, to come up with 3 more would be tough. Um, because my original ones were the sense of immersion and kind of just escapism in games, music, and then the sense of community that you can find through games. I'm gonna struggle to come up with 3, but I do have one off the cuff that I can think about, and that's just like kind of the conversation and critique that can come from games. And what I mean by that is thinking about games like The Last of Us Part 2 and all of the controversy that surrounded that and just the decisions that Naughty Dog made with certain characters and the direction of that game. Things like BioShock Infinite. When you play that game, you
Oh, that's a
almost
game. That is a
need
game.
to freaking take a step back, call your best friend, smoke a cigar, I don't even smoke, and drink a whiskey to unpack and process what the hell just happened in a game like BioShock Infinite. Telltale's The Walking Dead, that game company's journey, just the discussions that can come from games like that goes beyond a simple 240 characters or less tweet or an IGN review, like what we just did about this game, right? Just the conversation, analysis, critique, theories about games. That conversation piece that comes from it is probably a big piece of it. Um, Beyond that, I would say, and this is a weird one, but maybe just like the collecting aspect, like memorabilia surrounding games. I don't
Mm.
own a lot of um what are like I want to say cardboard cutouts. That's not the correct
Acrylics?
term. Things like that, standees, right? Like if you look in the
Like
behind
stuff
like
like
Pete
this.
Door, yeah, kind of like that, but like display pieces that you would find in Toys R Us or Best Buy for games
Mm.
like Dark Cloud, Golden Sun, Jack and Daxter, things like that. Um, just learning about and maybe even collecting yourself memorabilia surrounding your favorite game franchises, figures. I mean, look behind me, you see a whole bunch of crap. It's not crap; it's great stuff. But like the collecting aspect behind games, I think that's a great thing that I love about the hobby. Although um, I'm kind of not really in the market for that type of stuff anymore necessarily. I think I feel pretty good about what I have. My gosh, Alex, that might be all I have off the cuff here. I'm trying to
Ugh,
think of one other
gotcha.
thing. That's 5. That's pretty good, right? Sense of immersion, music,
Now
community,
you
game
have to have an
analysis.
even number. Even number. Come on.
All right. I'm like trying to do some quick Google searches. No, I'm not going to cheat. Um, I got nothing.
You want one of mine?
Yeah, please help me out here.
All right. So this one's it's a little heavy. So I took a class in college, fiction into film, and I had to write a term paper comparing Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the book, versus the movie with Robert De Niro. So we
Mm.
read the book, then we watched the movie, and I hated the movie. Could not stand it. I did not know this movie was my professor's favorite movie.
Oh, wow.
So in my term paper, I ripped it to shreds. And I got a C as somebody who is traditionally an A student in this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And completely out of character, I went up to her. Her name was Elizabeth Desnew. I went up to her and I was like, Professor Desnew, I want to talk about my paper. She goes, yeah, you completely misunderstood the assignment. I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't like the film. And I explained why I didn't like it. And she goes, Alex, the assignment was to discuss the artist's, the filmmaker's interpretation,
Mm.
not critique it like a film.
Mm-hmm.
Go back, explain to me why they made these decisions, why they did these things, why they felt the way that something had to be shot. Rewrite the paper and I'll regrade it. So I went back and I watched the whole. I still hate the movie. But from a filmmaker perspective, and you could say this with Lord of the Rings, how much stuff did they leave out? How much
There's
stuff did
quite a
they have how much stuff did they have to alter?
yeah.
And then people say, it's not accurate. It doesn't make sense in the scope of cinema,
No.
right? It just doesn't. You can't have, all right, now we're going to pause because we have to go into Index 8 and we have to explain the past 1,000 years of Middle Earth for the next 3.5 hours. And then we'll come back and then Frodo will put the ring on. No, we can't do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. So Peter Jackson has to pick and choose from a filmmaker perspective his own interpretation of what these characters look like, of how these
Mm-hmm.
characters interact, and how exposition and information is conveyed within a 3 to 4 hour window, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a game that picks up on historical media, historical fact, or historical fiction, and takes that interpretation and makes it its own, to me, that's one of my favorite parts about video games. God of War is like, as somebody who loves Greek mythology, that fight against Hercules, to me, was absolutely amazing. The boss
Mm-hmm.
fight isn't difficult, but when you get to fight Hercules, I was like, OMG, they finally put in Hercules. The Horse Lord, like these minor gods and, demigods that I read about in Latin class because I took Latin. And now I get to fight them in a video game, and in context you see the attributes that made them who they were.
Mm-hmm.
Or in like Immortals Phoenix Rising. It took like my favorite part about that whole game is that it opens up with Zeus going to the top of the mountain where he sees Prometheus and they start arguing like two old Greek men,
Mm-hmm.
right? Prometheus is up there because that's literally because he fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Zeus put him there. He's like, you want to give them fire, and this is what I do, and they just start arguing. And I'm like, that is the comedic interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And I eat that stuff up, personally.
Well, then tell me, Alex, why you're not playing the Assassin's Creed games more.
So, to answer that question, I'll tell you exactly why. I played Assassin's Creed 1, and I thought it was all right. I played Assassin's Creed 2. Now, Leonardo da Vinci, I like the fact that they kind of made him like M,
Yeah. Yeah.
He comes up with gadgets I kind of like that. And then the third game, I didn't play it, but I watched enough of it where I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. And then the fourth game, I'll be honest with you, I've never been a big pirate guy.
Okay. That's fair.
So I kind of dropped off. But then when it came to Origins and everything else, it's just too much.
Yeah.
As it were, right? Like that's really what it was for me personally. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like I know I rag on you about them, but from a historical aspect, I like the idea. But when it comes to the gameplay, not so much.
Yeah.
For me.
Yep. No, that's perfectly fair. I actually just uninstalled Assassin's Creed Shadows for my PS5. So
Why you need space?
that because the game's 100 plus freaking gigs. I just can't do it. Um, and with Ghost of Yotai coming out this fall, I'm sure I'll go back to it. It won't be anytime soon. And I'll kind of sneak this in and then we can wrap up. The most frustrating aspect about the game is not necessarily that it's big, because it is. It's a massive map and reimagining of Japan during the feudal Japan era. Every single quest, every single one, you have to go talk to guy whoever. It'll say he's north of Kyoto, east of this tower, and west of a bridge. It's like, all right. So then you have to go meander around this general area to figure out where the hell this guy is.
They don't give you
You talked,
waypoints?
they don't. And then you talk to this guy, and he's like, all right, now I want you to go kill this guy. He's east of Osaka, west of this random person, and north of this other tower. Every single thing that you have to do in the game, whether it's assassinating someone, talking to someone, collecting that a thing, has a 3-part riddle to it. Every single quest and every single thing that you do has a 3-part riddle. North of this, east of that, west of here. And the game's already 40 hours long. But when you have no idea where the hell you're supposed to go, it's tacking on at least an additional 10 hours of just wandering aimlessly to find your objective. And the thing that people make fun of Ubisoft for most is the ticky-tacky check the box nature of the games. It's, hey, go here on this specific place on the map and assassinate this person. Then go here and sink a tower. Then go here and collect a thing. I don't know if they took criticism to heart or they're just looking to really rub people like me the wrong way, but who doesn't really like puzzles and games. But every single thing that you do has a riddle associated with it, and it was just driving me nuts. I mean, it got to the point where I was literally going to YouTube for every quest and just saying, where the heck am I supposed to go? Where is this guy? And it's just too frustrating. I don't have the patience for it.
Sounds like they were taking notes from the guys who did Star Wars Outlaws. Um, for the record, as I know you feel similarly, I really enjoyed that game.
Yeah, it's a good time.
It's a heist. That's what I like. I
Yeah.
liked it. I like it. It's just a big heist. It's Ant-Man. It's just a heist. It's a self-contained heist. But anyway, this is going on long enough. It is hot as hell in here, to say the least. I feel like I'm glistening.
Yeah.
But Rusty, where can everybody find you on the social media these days? What else is coming down the pipe?
Yeah, so on Twitter, Blue Sky, wherever you are on social media, Ari Lewis 2011. On YouTube, it's LOOIE, as you'll probably have somewhere in the YouTube feed. In terms of videos coming soon, I'm trying to find a way to highlight and do deeper dive kind of retrospectives on games I love. And so 3 that you can expect in the next couple of months are videos about Days Gone, Ukulele, and the Assassin's Creed series as a whole. So I just put 75 to 80 hours in Days Gone. Lord knows how many hours I've put into Assassin's Creed in the past couple years. And people are probably tired of me talking about Ukulele, but I don't care because I've got to really dig long and deep and hard and explain all the reasons why Ukulele is not as bad as people make it out to be before the remaster comes out later this fall. So,
I was about to ask,
yeah.
when does that remaster come out? Because I'm actually looking forward to that.
Playtonic hasn't put a date to it. I'm not really sure why. Hopefully soon, but I'm gonna try and time my video close to the release, and maybe I've never done this, but maybe even reach out to Playtonic and see if I can get a potential review code for the remaster. So we'll see.
I was going to say, you should reach out to him and be like, I want you to look behind me,
Yeah, exactly.
and I want you to give me free video game.
Please,
Heart.
please.
And that's it. That's
please.
it. That's all you have to write.
Yeah.
And maybe a headshot with you and your daughter, and the caption says, "Don't make her sad."
Right. Exactly. Yep. That's the move.
Awesome. Well, Rusty, thanks once again for putting up with me and doing all this stuff, and only doing 2/3 of the homework. But you know what? In some places, the 65 is still passing. So
That's right. That's right. No, my pleasure. Honestly, Alex, this is so much fun. I hope we can do it again. I kind of figured that we were going to spend the vast majority of our time just talking about Indiana Jones and the Great Circle because it really is that good. But if you've not played it, people, and you're a fan of Indiana Jones, my gosh, please play this game. If you've never seen the Indiana Jones films, blink. Watch the dang
Wait,
movies.
wait, wait. What?
Blink has never seen an Indiana Jones film, ever. He gives me such a hard time, as many people do, for not playing certain games or finishing certain. This man watches one movie every 10 years, and he's never seen an Indiana Jones film. For the love of God, Steve, what are you doing? Watch Indiana Jones.
You see that you made me leave. You made me leave.
I know.
All right. Well, we'll have to correct that later, I think.
We will.
All right. Awesome. Once again, I haven't even said the first time. Everybody, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy.